videotaped. A Board of Education meeting is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. Anyone wishing to address the board may do so during one of the 2 public comment periods, and the board will determine whether to respond at that time or defer the issues raised to a later time. The board reserves the right to limit the amount of time per speaker to 3 minutes. Anyone addressing the board must state his or her name, and please come forward because we only have a mic through there tonight. Any questions should be directed to the board, not to administrators or other staff. Anyone who wishes to have a matter placed on the agenda for a board meeting, to have materials distributed at a board meeting, or to raise questions that require more detailed answers than can reasonably be discussed during a regular monthly meeting, should feel free to contact the Board of Education via email, and that is boe@hamiltoncentral.org, at least 5 days prior to the relevant meeting. It's up to the board to determine what's appropriate to discuss and distribute at its meetings. Are there any additions to the agenda? Can I get motions to approve the agenda as submitted?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get motions to approve the minutes of the September 8th, 2016 regular meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have a consent agenda that we'll make one motion for. The only thing I'm going to read in the consent agenda is the last item, which is 4.1, and that is a motion to approve the following extracurricular advisors for the 2016-17 school year: Victoria Corning, Allison Kenyon, and Laura Hyman. Can I get motions to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Nope.
Okay.
Matt, I have questions on the treasurer's report.
Okay.
There were outstanding checks on one of the pages. Just wondering if that's a typical outstanding balance.
Yeah, we have outstanding checks, several every month. It's just based off our monthly bank reconciliation. So, yeah,
That's a typical
I'm not
amount.
looking at it specifically, there's probably dozens every month.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? This brings us to our first opportunity for community participation. If you'd like to participate at this time, please come forward. And state your name. Can you get up?
Where do you want me?
There's no mic, so
I guess
just
there's
use your
no
big
mic
voice.
anywhere.
All right,
So-
so
He's close enough.
I realize this might not be a general question for the board, but I think there's a lot of there's a lot of confusion about the art position, and I think there's a lot of misinformation being spread. So I wondered if you might want to just, if you could give us a status of where it's at and a timeline of how we got there, because I'm afraid there's a lot of bad hearsay going on, and just if you could clear that up for everybody that hasn't been paying attention.
Okay. Do that, or do you want to?
You were prepared.
Okay.
Mr. Downson, if you will.
Sure. As a means to clarify, I'm going to run you through a timeline as to where we are and what's been done to this point. So on June 20th, we initially posted the position on OLAS, which is the online system to apply for jobs within our BOCES region.
Could you clarify when you got the resignation that made the opening?
We didn't get the resignation until June 30th. We knew that the current art teacher was going to leave, so we posted it before we actually got her resignation. So, on anticipating that she was going to go, we posted it on the 20th. We received her resignation on the 30th. On August 9th, we appointed a teacher, a .5 art teacher for the secondary. Unfortunately, on August 23rd, she resigned her position. On August 26th, we reposted it on OLAS. On September 1st, we reached out to Alfred University, Syracuse University, and Hamilton College. On September 9th, we reposted the position again with some rewording just to kind of generate some new interest. On September 13th, we reached out to 2 professors that we have relationships with at Colgate to see if they had anybody that would be interested or could help us out. They referred us to the Central New York Arts Council. They posted it on their website on September 22nd. Also sent the position out on their newsletter. On September 27th, we reposted the position again on OLAS. On September 27th, the Oneida principal, Oneida had a full-time position available. He then gave me their 3 runner-up positions that we notified. Out of those 3, one of them replied. We had an interview set up. She never showed up for the interview. On September 29th, we interviewed a candidate that has 12 years of teaching experience with art, unfortunately out of state. So she's not certified in New York State at this time. She's working on her New York State certification. She is being recommended to the board tonight for approval as a substitute. So via the OLAS postings, we identified approximately 20 potential candidates that we thought fit our need to interview. Those outcomes ranged from no responses to not being interested due to distance. And you have to understand OLAS is a state website, so anytime there's an art position, people just filter their resume into that position, not knowing where you're located. So you may get people from Long Island, New York City applying, then they find out it's 5 hours away, and it just doesn't work out. So we do have 2 candidates who we feel meet our qualities of being a faculty member here. They've expressed interest. However, they're not available until December and January because one is student teaching and one is studying abroad in France right now. So they're not available until they come back. So that's the timeline where we're at. Those are the efforts that have been put forth, unfortunately, with very little interest to this point.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments at this time?
My name is Alicia Simmons, and I'm the parent of a first grader here. And I would like to comment on the eSpark initiative going forward in the 2016-2017 academic year. First, I want to express my thanks for having the Second Parents University last night. I thought we had a really great turnout, and I thought people raised a lot of questions that they wanted to talk about. My sense, I appreciate that we ended at a good time. People have other responsibilities. I think we ended before all the questions and concerns were exhausted. And so I come to ask that we have another meeting very soon. Given the letter that was sent today, parent involvement, right? One of the principles that we're running by, equal participation or encourage participation from all stakeholders, right? Encourage participation from all stakeholders. I think that we need to have another meeting soon. Not in an indefinite future. And I think that there are several issues that need to be raised. One of my personal issues of why I think this is of such importance for both parents and administrators and the board. I would love for y'all to be part of this meeting going forward as well. I think one of my personal reasons that I think it's important is because we've spent a large amount of money, right? Upwards of $24,000 on this for this year. If we deem this pilot a success, we will continue to spend more money down the road, right? This isn't a one-time expenditure. And so it's a significant cost, and I believe that we need to have an effective strategy for assessing whether or not it's working, right? I am a teacher myself. I've used one-to-one technology in my classroom. I want it to work, right? I do. But I want sound science. And given the letter today, and given my questions last night, I participated in the meeting last night, which the video is available. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Given the answers I got last night, the data from the summer is based on 2 students. 2 students who showed some good success. That is not compelling data to my mind, and that's the sense I got from this letter. And given the financial cost, given the cost in time, right, 60 to 90 minutes per week, this is not a trivial thing. And I really hope it works. But I think that meetings need to continue to be scheduled. Meetings need to be continued to be scheduled soon. And I think that we all need to be coming to the table on this. So thank you for your time. I respectfully request more meetings in the immediate future. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Are there any other comments at this time? Travis?
I'll piggyback on that.
Okay.
I appreciate you saying that too. First off, gripes go upwards, but I think oftentimes compliments don't do the same when they should. Just so you as a board should know that Kevin and Dr. Ray have been very open and helpful with this eSpark issue as far as communicating with the public. And I've seen the concerns of a lot of people. I've had some personal experiences with the eSpark throughout the summer. I understand it's a pilot, we've probably already paid for it. Here's what I urge you as a board to do. I urge you to give the administration the support they need to get this running soon. Because it's a pilot, and the more days that it is used, the better to judge it. And I understand the options. And what I would say as a compromise is maybe the parents of students that are apprehensive about it can temporarily opt out of it until all these questions are answered. There are a lot of parents that aren't even aware of it, so there's going to be both sides. As a parent, I want my daughter to be using that now. I want it to get going so we can see how it works. And yes, keep the flow of conversation going in the meantime, but this has been talked about for plenty of meetings, and I'm sure that a lot of people are just being aware of it. But this has been out there for a while. So please give the administration the support that they need to just let this finally get going, and urge them to continue the conversation with parents that are apprehensive, and in time, they can be convinced or they can be not convinced. Just, there
Thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments at this time?
Ferdinand from Munich. I had a follow-up question on the art teacher question. Is that a full-time or half-time or less than half-time? What's the benefit situation? In other words, if we're not having a perfect harvest of candidates, might that have something to do with the conditions we are offering, or not? Is it just our location? What are the parameters?
It's part-time, 0.5, so it's straight half-time. I think it's possible that you're not getting people because it's not full-time, but it's also possible to hire someone really well who ends up a full-time when it's part-time. So I don't know really. I think part of it is timing. When you get a late resignation, you are in a compromised position to begin with, because most school districts start their hiring season, good ones, at least ones that plan fairly well, in March or late February for April appointments. So I think timing is a part of it all, in addition to the other conditions that Mr. Downsland laid out. So I think that there are a couple of factors at play that's putting us at a disadvantage.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments at this time? Do we have a teacher presentation from Ms. Coddington and Ms. Rose?
Hello. Last year, we received new units of study for reading workshop. And the year before, we received new units of study for writing workshop. So our goal of our summer curriculum project was to revise our old curriculum maps for reading that go along with these new units. We chose the reading for our project because we wanted to unpack each unit and really get to know the units in depth. We aligned it with the Common Core standards, and we found books and materials to use with each unit. And we thought about, what kind of anchor charts would we have to use with each unit, and some we would have to create. So we revised our map, and it's now online. It's on the HCS website under our curriculum
If
maps.
anyone wants to look, we did have just 2 copies here, but it is on the website, so you can make lots of copies.
And we worked actually quicker than we thought we would with our realigning of the curriculum map. So we have a little bit of time to revise our writing units of study curriculum map to the Common Core standards. So that's also online. Although we need a little bit more time to add to our resources for our writing workshop and gather our measure text and create our anchor charts. As you can see just from our own maps, here's our reading, where you can see all the work we did on each unit beyond, and here's our writing. So we still have things that we want to do with it.
Sure, and also going along with our project, we had some money in our budget where we were able to order some books, and we actually were able to order over 30 books. We were really good bargain shoppers. So some of the things that we ordered were the emergent storybooks, Vanna, like The Carrot Seed and The Three Little Pigs and Caps for Sale. And this type of book does a lot to build vocabulary with all the rich language in it. And they're also very engaging, and they help children to learn the story language, like Once Upon a Time and that. Also, during the read aloud, the children interact with the teacher and join in with the parts that they know, like I'll huff and I'll puff. I'm sure you know the rest. And you can probably finish it. So they love those. They've just done such a great job with them. And because we were able to order more, we now have multiple copies rather than just the one copy of each book that came with their units of study. So that we now have books for them at their independent reading time and their partner reading time. And this is helping us also to track their development with Elizabeth Susby's stages of emergent storybook reading. And that type of reading is a really good way of developing their emergent literacy skills. And then the other books that we ordered, if you want to compare, they're shared reading books, and they have an interesting storyline, but you can see obviously simpler, repetitive text and predictable text, and the pictures really support the text. And that helps us to build their concepts of print and phonological awareness. When we do those, we read them multiple times for both types of books, so we can really look and study the illustrations and what the authors are doing. With these little books, we also work with finding high-frequency words and playing word games and rhyming games. All of those things obviously build reading comprehension, it builds their phonemic awareness, their fluency, their confidence, and really just also their attitude that they're readers. And that's really the name of the first unit, We Are Readers. So that's it, and thank you very much.
Expect us to be around chanting that soon. We did it last year.
Can I ask you just a couple questions?
Okay.
Sure.
You have in the We Are Readers, one of the enduring understandings is people feel like part of a reading community. Can you just explain like why that's important or what?
Well, you know, we talked to them about how everybody can read in the classroom, in the school. Everybody reads. You know, we that's one of our first units. Our first lessons is who reads, and they say I read. My mom reads. My grandma reads. So they learn that everybody does something to read, whether it's reading for work, reading for fun, reading to get somewhere, whatever it may be. So we tell them that, you know, you're going to be part of this. You're going to be part of this reading community. It's a great place to be. They'll take you on many adventures, and they'll teach you lots of new things, because right now we're doing our Learn About the World books, which is...
And kind of jumping off of that, when you give a young child who really can't read the actual words yet, the first thing they will say to you is, I can't read this. So this unit is really kind of inviting them to the literacy club. Like, you're a part of us, you're with us with the secretaries and the bus drivers and your moms and your dads and your aunts and your uncles. We're all readers. And as we've been doing this, I really do, and you probably agree, find that when they start to get the books, you don't hear that as much as we used to hear, I can't read this. It's just kind of a really nice, welcoming way of you know, saying, you can do this, you've got this. And it really does help.
My second question, which may be that there is no connection, but we've heard two people talk about this eSparks program. How does that impact or not impact what you're doing here?
I don't have enough information.
Yeah, either do I. We are going to have another workshop tomorrow.
Okay.
In the afternoon by eSpark. So we'll learn some more. We're just new to it ourselves.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to new business. Under personnel, we have one resignation. Can I have motions to accept the resignation of Nancy Hughes as a full-time bus driver effective October 21st, 2016, with sincere appreciation for services rendered to the district?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have several appointments. Can I have motions to approve the appointment of Rachel Jackson as a probationary part-time teacher aide effective October 14, 2016 on step 1 of the salary schedule as recommended by the Director of PPS and the Superintendent?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to approve Joellen Manley as a .25 FTE teacher aide effective October 14, 2016 through June 23, 2017, as recommended by the Director of PPS and the Superintendent. I'll second. Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve the appointment of Isine Denise
Yep.
Kavaz as a long-term school counselor on step 1 of the salary schedule as recommended by the elementary principal and the superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion?
Is this to take Ms. Quilla's place? Is this?
Sort of. It's to take, the elementary guidance counselor right now is doing middle school and elementary. So when we hire Ms. Cabas, she will, there'll be an elementary counselor, will be fully secondary, and this person will take the elementary slot.
And when does this person start? It's not mentioned.
Correct. It's not mentioned because I tried to call her employer yesterday and see if we can get her sooner rather than 30 days. And unfortunately, they do not have a sub for her in her current position. I know her employer because we work together. So until they will hold her for the 30 days or until they can find someone to replace her, whichever comes first. So it could be in 30 days, it could be in 15.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I have motions to approve the roster of winter coaches as recommended by the athletic director and the superintendent?
Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are all of the winter sports here in Hamilton?
No, we have another later motion about that, so. We have a couple that are going to be chaired, so. These appointments are.
But these here are all in Hamilton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and these appointments are contingent upon sufficient numbers of participation.
So I have done one more. Is there a
Sure.
varsity boys basketball?
Yes.
We already approved
It's
it.
already been approved. Oh.
We approved it last time. Tom Blackford.
Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to approve the following to the substitute list as recommended by the principals and the superintendent: Patrick Moore, Marnie Horton, Lindsay Cross, and Molly Shaw.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I have motions to approve the advisors for the 2016-17 fall play, cheaper by the dozen, as recommended by the secondary principal and the superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. We have a leave of absence. Can I have absence? Can I have motions to approve a leave of absence for Sarah Zogby for the purposes of adoption of a child from China with a tentative date between November 14th to December 5th, as recommended by the principal and the superintendent.
Second.
Any discussion? Just congratulations.
I was gonna say
It's
congratulations
really,
to
it's
her.
wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Going to the Committee of Special Education actions. Can I have motions to approve the recommendation of the committees on special education and preschool special education? These recommendations are from meetings held in September and October. I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion would be held in executive session, so all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Can I have motions to accept the following monetary donations and to increase the budget by these amounts? From Slater Brothers Entertainment, $400. From the Broad Street Gallery Alumni Art Show, $159. From the Hamilton Emerald Foundation, $17.80. And from the Hamilton Odd Fellows, $100.
Second.
Any discussion?
What is the social studies institute they're going, the trip?
Columbia University Social
Yeah.
Studies Institute.
What is that?
That is professional development requested by 2 teachers to go down to Columbia, where they are just going to engage in training and curriculum development and design by really high-level practitioners.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Excuse me.
Aye.
Can I have motions to approve Hamilton Central's participation in Sherburne Earlville's swimming, Casanovia's ice hockey team, and Morrisville Eaton's wrestling during the 2016-17 winter season as recommended by the athletic director?
I'll move. Second.
Any discussion?
How many students about are we talking about? Do we have any?
There's 2 swimmers, 2 ice hockey players, and I believe 1 modified wrestler at this point.
So at this point, we would not be into the transportation issue of any of these? Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to policies. This is the second read for policy 1020. Can I have motions to adopt the revised policy?
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, the things that have changed in this policy, there were a lot of things in the policy that were also in the regulation, which is 1020.1. Regulations don't get processed in the same way that policies do, so if anyone wants to read the regulation that goes with this policy, 1020.1, and discuss that with the superintendent, changes can be made and they have to be approved by the board, but we don't have to have the 2 readings. So, any other discussion about these changes? Okay, all in favor? Policies 3011 and the regulation 3011.1, administrative organization and operation chart, and this is our first read. Can I have motions? We don't have any motions with this, but we do have discussion.
Just a discussion. On the organizational chart, 3011.1, we just are changing Director of Technology to Computer Services Technician, which is what the employee is hired as, and we have taken that out of the administrative line, and it is now instructional, and that just needs to be reflected.
So no motion on that. But we also have a first read on the concussion management policy, number 7101.
Right. So this is coming directly from our BOCES, and the recommendation is from our labor relations, our policy arm. We subscribe to their service, and so this is just the latest, and it's for us to read, and it's recommended, and it will be adopted with some revision if local school districts choose to make some revisions, but there's a change, and that's
And we also have a first read on policy number 8603, responsible intervention.
going fast here.
Well, we are going fast. We have people who do.
Yeah. In August of 2016, the State Education Department came out with a memorandum, and I'll just read one excerpt of it. Districts must develop a policy no later than September 1, 2016 for providing AIS during the 16-17 school year. District policies for providing AIS include a description of what student performance measures and associated scores will be utilized to determine eligibility. Must be posted on the district website or distributed to parents in writing. We currently have a policy, an RTI policy that was adopted in 2011, which took our AIS. And took the place of our AIS. And so it was already on the website. What needed to happen, which makes this, what's proposed different, is that it specifically, we're asking to make it the RTI/AIS policy. And then there are some other components that Mr. Bragan and Mr. Ellis will articulate that's in the writing that just specifically speaks to the instruments and cut points, as well as notifications, so they'll take it from here.
So one of the things that they're asking us to have is the identification means of how we place kids into AIS or RTI services. And we're kind of lumping those together, calling it AIS RTI because it's confusing. Title I is AIS, we do RTI, which can replace AIS, but we have things that we have to follow through AIS. So there are several indicators, two being the New York State ELA test and the New York State math test, and as you know, we don't have a lot of kids take that test, so more than half, so we have to use other means, and we should really use other means than that. In the past, the state has said if a student scored middle 2 level or lower, you automatically were qualified for AIS services. And now the state is saying if you score a level 2, it's up to the district to use that as one of your indicators, and so we have other indicators that we use to qualify kids for RTI AS services. The F&P benchmarking. This year we'll have NWEA math tests in both math and ELA for students that are struggling learners or below grade level. Our Teachers College reading and writing performance assessments that are at the beginning and end of each unit. can be used. Our new math series, Everyday Math in the Elementary, has unit assessments pre and post that can be used. And then, of course, one that's real important for us is teacher recommendation. So all of those are indicators of how a student could qualify for. When we send a letter home to the parents notifying them that your student or your child has qualified for services, we bullet the ones that were used to qualify for that service. So they know, they got a 2 on ELA and they're falling behind in NWEA on their benchmarks, and the teacher's recommending this. And then the other piece that we needed to do was we had to have a notification of ending of service. So how does the child get out of AIS once they're in? And it's the same criteria. So if they are improving in these criteria that got them there, then they exit in that way. So, and then a letter would go behind us too. And it's just, it all has to be written and spelled out.
The entry, the progress monitoring, and the exit, that really hasn't changed, but now it's more detailed in terms of what multiple measures are you using, what measures are you using for a child to enter, what measures do you use for progress monitoring and for exit. So that process was always there, but being more specific now with the instruments that you can use.
Any other discussion about that too? Okay, so we'll have a second read next board meeting. Okay. Brings us to the strategic plan proposal. Can I get motions to accept the strategic plan proposal from TLC Associates as outlined in the proposal submitted to the board in the amount of $17,975 as recommended by the superintendent? Any discussion?
My discussion is the same thing I emailed Dr. Allison about. I've been involved in many strategic plans in the past, but they've always involved an RFP that clearly defines the scope and the scale of the project. And we got proposals back that had even different length of strategic plans from 1 to 5. It sounds like this company may be good. It seems like it just seems like we've gotten off. To me, and I guess the best way to say is I don't know how to evaluate them since I don't know what they were asked to do. I have the superintendent's report, which says a bunch of the issues that we're facing, and I get that, but we haven't told these companies, how do we want you to do your strategic plan? And I'm not saying the nuts and bolts, but what are we looking from each one? And so they're vastly different proposals. So to me, I find it, honestly, to be impossible to evaluate them because they're completely different items.
Any other discussion?
I agree with Paul. I had trouble evaluating looking at them. This was one that, there was one that I was not good with going with, so I was glad that wasn't the one that was chosen. But between the other two, I'm kind of stuck on them, so I guess I needed a little bit more of why, and why did we choose it.
Prepared to do that, as well as articulate again as to what criteria was, what information was given to the consultants. In fact, I'll probably start with process again. When we initially, when I first brought this to the board, I gave an outline of the many issues facing the school district, and for both the long term and the short term, and the interest in getting more community input based on the talent pool that's already here to help guide the decision-making process, which included Dr. Ellen Pohl, Dr. Jessica Cohen, former district superintendents who do this work, Ms. Fadale, who does this work also, who immediately reclused herself from participating whatsoever. She did give me a lead to Ms. Virginia Tyler, who was not available, and Brett Collins, who does this work, and Ms. Karen Markov from PLC, and her boss is actually Kennedy Cedar-Hurry, who gave the plan, and Sean Brady. Also had conversations with community partners, CEO of Community Memorial Hospital, Mr. Dale, just in terms of gaining picking the brains of local people. Ms. Dudrick from the Oak State Institute at Colgate University, and thought in action, Ms. Mary Galvez, and at some point at a board meeting, someone indicated we should tap into some of the community agencies with regard to their information and knowledge and some work that they may have already done for us on strategic planning. They don't do that kind of work, and now that I'm on the board for the Upstate Institute, I even have a better relationship and understanding of the kind of work that they do. And I spoke to Dr. Chavez at Colgate. So having gone through all of that, each person who was qualified to do strategic planning was given a list of the issues the district faced. Strategic planning are typically the same for school districts. Core mission, vision, how to get there, much like we did in those presentations. So we asked them, could you give us a proposal for a school district that is inclusive? So we want a traditional strategic planning proposal that is inclusive of these items as well. Going through that process, and this is where it got more interesting. So I was in touch with Sia Burry, who we are already using the company to who helped us with our DST, the District Comprehensive Improvement Plan. And so all of the 3 people who were either available and had interest and qualified to do so received that charge. Traditional district strategic plan, a proposal, and be inclusive of these issues. Along the way, I was meeting with the HTA president, who I distributed this to, and we had discussion. And this is where we got lucky. I found out that a neighboring district was going to spend a lot of money, or may be spending a lot of money on a strategic plan. And I reached out to him and connected those two. And he found value in it. They're going with them. And as a result, I said, based on your initial price, if you land that deal, I'd like a deal here to save our taxpayers some money. So what was initially an upwards of $24,000 was reduced to this. And, there's always some back and forth and trying to build relationships. So I don't know that there is a company in New York with this amount of experience and network that does strategic planning. The reason why we found PLC to begin with, I asked an experienced superintendent when we were identified as a focus district, and Mr. Ellis and I had to go to Albany. He said, do not leave without PLC coming down to do your district strategic plan. So there was a lot of credibility and reputation with the company to begin with. But when I saw the proposal from that, and I'm familiar with consultants who do strategic planning, I had not seen anything like this before in the field of education. And one person was not in education, and the HCA leadership and I agreed when we met that person should move forward, but there was no recommendation for either or. And so, using my best judgment, consulting with my team, that's my recommendation. And I think a very good one, given all of the factors, including the fact they've been around so long, they already have a COSER. So the 17.9, our reimbursement rate with BOCES comes to half of that. So, yeah, right. So at the end of now we'll have to spend 17.9 if you recommend we go with it. But when we do our reconciliation with BOCES, half of that comes back, and so now we're paying close to $9,000 for what would have been a $25,000. Well, it would have been half of that also. But that's my recommendation based on all of that information and the context that I shared with you.
Do you want to say anything about the plan? You really have a lot of, okay.
I don't, this one stood out as
The best one.
as of the 3. I mean, it was far and above the most comprehensive and unique, and I thought more detailed, and I also felt that it was going to be, it would give us a better product. But out of the 3 that were given, and like you said, I mean, you can give the parameters of what you want to have met, but at the end, it's a strategic plan. The process is very much the same.
I just thought that this one did a much better job of outlining.
I thought it did a great job. My concern is without an RFP that determines scope and scale, these things can mushroom. And they can become more than what we may have intended. I don't have any doubt that this is a very good company, that they're gonna do a great thing, and that we could save money. My concern is that my experience in the past, by having an RFP, we can control that and ensure that things aren't going to get larger, and that we would have had proposals that would have been more comparable to look at each other. I'm not questioning even the decision of this one. It was clearly the best one.
Well, this is a proposal, and when you accept the proposal, then you write a contract and you write it into it, so that's where you're gonna see that.
I'll just give you one simple example. Usually the RFP would say that we're looking for a strategic plan for a 5-year period. We didn't state the number of years. One plan was 3, another plan was 5. And I'm not getting into the weeds of which one was which, or that it's irrelevant. I'm saying that's the value of an RFP, because if we are then working with a company and they start hearing from us that we want to project farther, and they projected it costs us $17,000, and they're thinking, I think there's this 5, but let's say, for example, that it was a 3-year plan, and now they're going further, well, that meter's running while they do that. We can protect that from happening if we have a well-defined RFP in the start saying this is what we're looking to get. And that's the part that I thought may or may not have been missing, because I don't know what the conversations were. I'm used to having a document that says, this is what we're looking to accomplish, and that wasn't there.
Clarifying question, Matt. When was the last time we did an RFP for something this size? Professional services?
Our internal auditors.
Okay, but that's required?
No.
Okay.
No, I mean, in my world, it's defined by the dollar amount, but I know that the controller was looking at that specifically, liability insurance. So
Got it.
we
Okay.
did it was 5 years. I think it's 5 years for auditors.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor?
Aye.
They want to post.
And all opposed? Okay, so we have one opposed. Okay, that moves us on to consultant recommendation. Can I have motions to authorize the superintendent to enter into a professional services agreement for the 2016-17 school year with Ms. Carrie Brown, CREC, for 6 days to assist in our special education department at a cost to the district of $6,000. Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are there other people that do this as well? I mean, I'm just looking at this as a new person. That's an awful lot of money for 6 days, and I have, again, nothing compared to. Got one person and one price tag.
I agree. I think special education does need to be looked at, but I feel that we also have people in-house or people that we're already paying, and so I guess I just stick a shot on that as well.
Go ahead.
Sure. So there are thousands upon thousands of people who can provide professional development and go under the name of consultant. This is interesting in that we hired Dr. Kerry Brown to come in and do some work for us in terms of interviewing parents, interviewing teachers, looking at documents, and we were able to get her services for a report, which is forthcoming. She gave the initial draft, and we had some questions that had to be edited, and it's going back. Something needs to be done yesterday with regard to special education. The good news is the teachers who worked with her and the parents who worked with her, it worked well and had a lot of respect. In fact, before I even sent you the initial communication indicating that this might be sticker shock, I spoke to the 2 teachers who worked with Dr. Brown to see what their perception was. And their perception matched my perception, which was she was very knowledgeable. She had also worked with the full staff one time to do a workshop with our BOCES attorney just to get a sense of where we were. So there are 2 reasons why this recommendation didn't go out to a lot of people. One, there's familiarity and approval. She is known, liked, and trusted by the people who she needs to work with. 2, for me, this is a sense of urgency, and I've talked to you in executive session before about the level of urgency in our special education department as I see it, and it came very clear to me, and it was very clear to teachers as well as that work and conversations took place. So that's the rationale, that's the best thinking under the current set of conditions, and you can always get cheaper, that I can assure you. But, you know, people who are really good at what they do they require a certain amount, and that's in pretty much any field. Mr. Bragan, could you speak to some of the work that we want to do immediately this year, even if we didn't use Ms. Brown? There are some things that we talked about that need immediate attention yesterday.
Yeah, in terms of some IEP development and writing, especially where it comes to standards-based IEPs, when it comes to our systematic processes of RTI 504 CSE, and how those triangulate and work together. When we look at how to write goals for students, when you look at the present levels of performance, there should be a direct line to goals, meaning you've articulated the strengths and weaknesses of a student, and based upon those, you're developing goals, you're developing a program. We also need to look at the continuum of programs, and I talked to you about that before in terms of as we get our department meetings going and look at long-range planning and strategic planning, to look at our continuum of services going out 3 to 5 years. So those are some of the, I think, the most important things to look at immediately, because those are the kinds of things that kind of develop and drive your special ed program. Those are the kinds of things that, if not done well, can get you in trouble as a district, especially if we're not implementing individual education plans well or correctly.
But are these things that you're educating the staff on as well, or no?
Part of my role will be doing professional development with staff. For example, whether it's myself or looking at things like BOCES. All of our special ed teachers right now are signed up to go to standards-based IEP training through one of our local BOCES. Development is, the professional development is free. There's no charge for that. Of course, there's subs and things like that, so there is some cost. But as we're identifying these things, we're already beginning to look at some of the trainings. But there's a lot more in-depth work that has to be done. So I think Carrie is very knowledgeable. Her expertise is very good. And I think having that person come in to spend some days and assist in that process is a benefit to the district.
Any other discussion?
I didn't get a chance to go back and look at names. So when you said she did some prior work, is this the person who worked with the staff to talk about the differences between 504s and IEPs?
Yeah, with
at the prior, okay.
With the attorney from BOCES, yes, that's Dr. Brown.
And I did hear very positive discussions of that event.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor? Aye.
One opposed.
One opposed. Okay, that brings us to a motion to appoint the Hamilton Committee for International Student Steering Committee as recommended by the superintendent. Do you want to say anything about this process, how
Sure.
this committee was picked?
Yeah.
The names are listed on board docs, so.
I'm going to pass one down for every board member, just so that I'm going to walk you through process, so that we can all be really clear. It starts, well, this was approved last spring. The parameters on who should be, the makeup of the committee was outlined. We asked the elementary and secondary principals to send out emails to staff members who might be interested on serving on the committee, with the exception of if you have a spouse interested in serving, then you would not be allowed to serve on the committee. Then we sent out a few mass emails and posted it on the website, informing people, and obviously at a board meeting, informing people that we were looking for people to volunteer. Then we put up a survey in the beginning, at some point in early September, gave about a 2 or 3 week window for people to fill out the information. We had no teacher volunteers to be on the screening committee. I did have a teaching assistant and a principal come in and volunteer their time. So each applicant, for lack of a better word, because they're volunteering, their name was blocked out, so you couldn't see their first name or their last name. Their phone number was blocked out, and their email was blocked out. So try to make it as blind as possible. And of course, each survey had a number on top, which I had to keep because I knew who everyone was, and I imagine Ms. Curley did also. Then just created a Likert scale and asked the principal and teaching assistant to read the question based on the responses to the final two. Based on the responses to the final two responses, just notice how weird that was. Rate this person in terms of whether you think how strong they are to be on this committee. And the two questions were, please briefly describe your experience or expertise with international students or program design and implementation. 2, why do you want to be on the HCS International Steering Committee? And so we asked them to read the responses and then circle 1, strongly agree they should be on, all the way down to strongly disagree. After that, I reviewed them all, looked at the different categories, student, community partner, and looked at the numbers and assigned. Then I had one of the secretaries inform the applicants, I don't have another word, inform the applicants that they were being screened and we'd be in touch within a few day window. It turned out to be within a week. Then we notified the people who were selected, and we left messages for people who were not selected to give Dr. Alston a call. And if they called, we spoke, and if they didn't, they didn't. And then we sent letters to inform them, thank you, but we don't, you weren't selected this time. So that's the process and how you get to the recommendations.
So how many people total applied?
I want to say it was 14 or 15. Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have our information time, so we have administrators' reports. Any questions, or any of the administrators want to talk about anything in their report?
Sure, if Ferdinand's still here, I'd like to congratulate Ferdinand and Sophie. For those of you that don't know, Sophie Von Munch was recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Program as a commended student, which is an outstanding academic achievement. So congratulations to Ferdinand and Sophie.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, any questions to any of the administrators or reports? And we have a superintendent's update.
Yes. As you know, we've had discussions on Morrisville football, transportation. We were able to come up with a solution that worked, and we're happy to say that that's in motion, and we're able to get our students over there and get them back, and so far so good. And I will always highlight good news in terms of finances, because that is something that we're keeping our eye on. $21,000 grant from the U.S. Department of Education for small rural schools, and Lisa Sykes from BOCES and Matt Crum did a lot of the legwork, and so we are greatly appreciative of that.
Thank you.
In other good news, it was mentioned earlier, and thank you for the outstanding report. about a reading community. So the community book talk will be on October 27th and December 1st. Smartest Kids in the World and How They Got That Way by investigative reporter Amanda Ripley. It went out to the community, I want to say yesterday. It's been on the website for a while. Shameless plug, the first 15 adults who register get a free book, because and the books are also on sale. That's a good deal because it's about a $13 book. It's also on sale at the Colgate bookstore. So we're
What was the
working.
date of that again?
The Smartest Kids in the World.
Date.
Oh, I'm sorry. 10/27 and 12/1. So we're doing it in 2 parts, so that people, if they don't want to read the entire book, they can just read the first 5 chapters, and they can come the second time. And either way, it's a good night. And I think that this will be a nice way to model to our students what we value. One of the things we value. And build community, and it's a really good book, and great conversation comes out of it. I did it before, and I'm not connected to the office.
Okay, can I have motions to adjourn to executive session so that we can? Ooh, what do we have to do?
Community participation.
I'm sorry, I forgot. This is our, I hear you.
That's okay.
Okay, okay, this is our second opportunity
You don't
for
have another
community
commitment, do you?
participation. Lori Coddington.
Hi, on the topic of Carrie Brown, she did our staff development for comparing the 504 plans and IEPs. And it was a very fun but confusing game that we played to learn about it. And I asked a simple request, and Dr. Alston worked with me on this, to have all the questions that were from her game show answered in the correct question, because the attorney and Carrie were debating about some answers. So I wanted a document or something that could lay out the answers to all the laws so we could understand them. Still, that was last year, still to this day I don't have that in my hand. And Dr. Alston and I worked on sending her emails, so that kind of tells me a little bit about a person that can't do a simple task, because I even typed up the questions for her. I just needed the correct answers, because the answers were not on the document she had given to Dr. Alston. So just for, you know, for the little bit she's interacted with us, sure, it was fun, but I didn't learn a thing, because we were all debating answers. And we, you know, she gave us one answer, and then the attorney was saying another answer. So we wanted the true answers, so we can understand the 504 and the IEP rules. So that's just a comment about Carrie Brown that I have from my experience with her. I'm still waiting.
Good to know.
And thank you for working, because Lori volunteered to do that. What Dr. Brown did is send us an Excel format with all of the questions and all of the answers on a spreadsheet. And that was way too difficult to, when you print it, see what the answer is. So there's tab A, tab B, tab. It was not very manageable. And so ultimately, she did not deliver the second part, which we didn't hire her for. But we did want some extra value, because that would have been very helpful. The other piece that you should know is that practitioners sometimes differ with lawyers for a variety of reasons. The lawyer is thinking about his constituent, and the practitioner is often, which is a judge or an arbitrator. And the constituent is usually, meaning the teacher or the person on the professional line, is looking at what's best for the needs of children. That is something, if you recall, you received an email just the other day about a 504, that there is definitely disagreement within the field, but legal standing as to what's 504, what's IEP, who's entitled to what, based on what. So it's not necessarily surprising that an attorney and a practitioner have a different opinion on something that ultimately gets ruled on by a judge. So a judge can go this way, a judge can go that way, and each one would have case law to support it. And so that's very tricky in special education.
But we're going to hire her to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers are still looking for the data that they need to help themselves understand, to help our special education improve, then we should request that. and that should be a part of what we get when she comes. I mean, if that's something that we've been waiting for a long time, and it's something that's going to help our special education department and our school in general to increase the knowledge of what special education is, then we need that as part of that.
Right,
that
and we
piece
have
of
it, but no one's interested in going through.
But we
Can we-
need it, we need that to be part of what we ask her as she comes.
Yes, yes,
Because, and it has
yes.
to be,
Yeah, I
it
think,
has to
I
be
think you
something
make,
that the
yeah.
teachers can get. If
I
we're
think-
gonna
And do
have
the
her
teachers
come
know
back-
that you have this thing
No,
that's,
well,
that's unreadable, or?
Yes, Ms. Coddington and I were both
Okay, okay,
working back and
so-
forth. It just,
yeah, okay.
we looked at it both and said, who has time to try and
Yeah,
figure it? We
okay.
even tried to blow it up. It just,
So on her
Unreadable.
first day on the clock, answer your question, and we'll be good.
yeah, that'll be part of
I
what
wrote
we
it down.
request.
Yeah, I saw Fred.
I'll
I just
follow
want
up.
the answers so I can
Yeah.
follow
Yeah.
along the way I'm supposed to.
Absolutely.
Fair.
Hi, Holly White. I just want to add a detail to Lori's assessment of that day. There was at least one question in which none of the answers were correct. She didn't even seem to be aware of that, but I looked up the law on the computer and I read her some sections, and then she was able to say, oh, that's right, actually, and she clarified. But I don't feel that was the only question that fit that category. There were definitely some questions where none of the answers were really accurate. I think that presentation, that game that she created, maybe just needed a little bit more fine tuning. Would you say?
I just think we need to be handed the answers to the questions.
That
right?
too, yes, but both, I think.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you so much. Any other comments? Sue?
Totally unrelated. I have some concerns about technology, and I just want to make you aware of what they are, and that we're still struggling. I know that things are starting to even out for the students, but teachers are still struggling with really old laptops that are incredibly slow, like minutes to open files. And we're not talking files that are on, we're getting from the internet. We're talking a PowerPoint that's on our computer. That's taking a full minute to open up. And I'm a little put off when please, the people that I'm working with are wonderful people, and I think they're doing the very best, and I'm not criticizing their department at all. I'm just letting you know the situation. I'm a little put off when there's an issue and I'm like, well, what's going to happen, for example, when the bulb in my projector goes for my smart board, because I'm dead in the water then, and, well, there's no money, is the response. And it's like, okay, I understand there's no money. Where are you finding it? Because I need my smart board projector to work constantly. And I was not, when the topic was brought up about a laptop being replaced, and I was told that the plan was, because I asked, well, what's the plan for replacing these? The plan was that eventually teachers will just bring in their own. And I was not the only teacher to be told that. Okay, I know of at least one other teacher. So that's just a little concern there. My real question though is, what's going on with the smart school money? Because that was over a year ago that we all started that, and it's over $400,000, and we don't even talk about it anymore.
Well, the last meeting that I was at it was at a BOCES regional meeting that they talked about smart school money. There were districts that had started to spend it, but it hadn't been reimbursed yet. So, Matt, do you know anything about that?
Sure. We had a meeting yesterday with Marie Haddad, who's our tech planner from the RIC, to get things going again. I believe there was an email that went out just recently for looking for people for a tech committee. The Smart Schools requires that you have a very comprehensive committee that consists of students, teachers. At this point, the only people we've had showing interest is teachers. We have just recently submitted our tech survey to the state through the MORIC. That's the first step, so that's been done. Jen Lobsher and I will be meeting with Maria Rocker. She's sort of the contact person through our MORIC that knows kind of where everybody is with their smart bond money and what to move forward. We've had an assessment done by our RIC of our infrastructure. And that's what we're looking at first and foremost. Without the infrastructure, it doesn't matter what devices we have. And we have some infrastructure that's on its last legs. And that's what we're going to be looking at first. So as far as exact timeline, I'm not sure. We have to have a public hearing. The plan has to go to the Smart Bonds Review Board. Districts are not, even those that are ahead of where we are, have not done anything yet.
That's the part that I was gonna make you very well aware. It's not like they say, here's the money. It's budget for the money, at the 400 for, in our case, 400 and change, let's call it 450 approximately. Budget it in your budget, spend it, and then the state will give you back the money. Now, the challenge with that is, I mean, it's good if you have reserves, the way you can do that. We came in under the tax cap last year, the year before so I don't know that we were ready anyway. So the wisdom with a lot of the superintendents is wait and let's see who gets reimbursed first, because in our area, we can't afford to raise the money, spend it, and not get it back in a timely manner. So this is it's not the safest bet right now to move on. Now, we're moving on it slowly, but.
Is there an end date? I mean, is there a time where it's too late
There's
to access
not.
it?
It's
Is
similar
there-
to, this is going back like 10 years or so ago, Excel money. It was known as Excel money. You know, one of the big criticisms of the Smart Bond itself was the state bonded $2 billion for 20 years for essentially things that have a useful life of free. So, you know, I know that a lot of, you know, we're going to look at, and it's going to be my recommendation, it's going to be Jen's recommendation, and I would imagine the RIC will be on board. We have to look at infrastructure first to be able to support devices. And so we've had an assessment done. It's stuff that I can't speak specifically to because I'm not knowledgeable in that area. Switches, wireless capability, ports, I can't even attempt to get into detail, but we have some considerable infrastructure issues that we need to address first, and that's what we're going to do.
Some of which I shared with the board last spring, and I'll be happy to kind of dig up that file and share it with the new trustees, because all indicators is that it's infrastructure, and I specifically have that information that would document what exactly is going on and why. And so, yeah.
I'd also like to add to what Sue said. It really is a situation of urgency. My computer has been slow for a few years, and it's frustrating, but I've lived with it. This year, it's something else entirely. When I asked, I was told my computer is 10 years old. It has 2 gigabytes of RAM. It's not equipped to deal with the internet today. So I'll have a few tabs open for my classes, and this year it's just very, very, not only frustrating, but it feels, I feel very guilty because so much time is wasted in every class. It can be something as simple as switching to one tab, or heaven forbid, opening a Google Doc that wasn't already open to a tab, and sometimes we will just sit there for 2 minutes, and the students will just sit and wait. But of course, they don't usually just, you lose them after around 15 seconds. So those types of delays are happening on a regular basis throughout all of my classes, and I can't say for sure if it's like that with all of the teachers. Now, I always have my Chromebook open on the side, because anything that I need to do that doesn't involve projecting or printing, I can do much more quickly on the Chromebook. But my classes all mainly revolve around the projector, and I often need to print things in the middle or at the end of class for students. So I told Sue the other day, I think I'm going to have to buy a computer to bring in here, and she said that she has heard that she thinks that's the plan, that teachers will just get so frustrated with the equipment that doesn't work, and more importantly, the time that is being wasted for students on a daily basis when you can't fit as much into the lesson.
Which I just want to, when I heard that, I'm just kind of thinking maybe we need to think about how we are spending some of the money, like maybe, you know, the money on eSpark or the money on the $6,000 that you just spent, and, you know, to hear about, you know, the light bulb or the computers and that. I don't know, it just kind of frustrates me when, I mean, I know that there are special ed issues to be taken care of, but, those are also issues that need to be taken seriously.
This is a to be continued discussion, so thank you. Okay, any other, Travis?
I realize you guys are in a hurry too, but I'll be quick. I don't really need a response. A lot of what I just heard kind of touches on what I was going to talk about too. You know, I've been coming to meetings for a few years now, and I actually heard the first opposition tonight. That's kind of exciting. That's, wow. But with that being said, it seems like a couple years ago, this district was in dire straits. We were talking about doing emergencies, couldn't afford things. Money from the state wasn't coming in. Now things have gotten kind of better, and it seems like we're just kind of proposing to just spend money here, spend money there. I would urge you, and it seems like you are as a board, but also as an administration, to kind of ease up on the, not ease up, but take a careful look at how we're spending money. And especially when I hear these things, I'll give you a little woodworking analogy, if you will. What I'm hearing right now is it sounds like we're spending a lot of money on like remodeling the house and we haven't touched the foundation yet. Touch on the computers, there's another little cliche for you. We just hired a new technology director. It's like asking a chef to fix a meal without being able to buy her groceries, or his groceries. So I urge you to do that. A lot of these things I'm for. I talked about how I'm for East Park. A lot of these things, and even the strategic planning, understand that in time that can save money. It can make the school better, the special ed position too. But it just seems like the more I've been hearing the last year or so, a lot of these things are great. They're great ideas, they're fresh, they're what we needed, but just pump the brakes a little bit sometimes and I don't know if I've necessarily seen that before from the board until surprisingly right now. In the past, I've sat back, I've watched. I've seen a lot of, okay, yeah, sure, whatever you say. I'm liking that I'm finally seeing some questioning. I'm not doubting the reasons behind it, but it's good to have this discussion because it's brought up things that I didn't even know about, which is kind of alarming. So I'll give you that. I'll end with something I was going to kind of talk about anyway. I don't need to comment about it, but small scale and budget. I urge you to look at the arrangement with our collaborating agent in regards to our universal pre-K grant. The terms of that agreement have changed over the last couple of years that don't necessarily benefit what we're giving, and maybe it's going to need some financial tweaking, a rent, if you will. Other districts are kind of leaning that way. It's not necessarily they have that case is their universal agent or collaborating agent, sorry. But just if you as a board did individually as a whole, you might want to start it now because budget time will be here soon, but just take a look at the collaborating agency agreement in terms of our universal pre-K grant and see if you individually are happy with it, because I think it could use a look at it. And again, like I said, I understand a lot of these programs and things are great, but things can change, and the state doesn't always give you the money they promise. I understand we get reimbursements, it's a year later, but I'm excited for a lot of these things, but just please be cautious with it.
Yeah, so part of the expenditures, when the state gives you money, there are often strings attached. So we received a total, and I don't know if the check came for this year, $50,000. Last year, $25,000 for, not for, but to help us because we were designated a focus district. And so with that, $25,000 you can use to try and identify problems within your organization as to why your students who are lower socioeconomic are scoring in the bottom 10% in New York State. And those numbers are questionable in the methodology, but that's part of it, okay? The $50,000 that we get this year is to do things that would improve your educational programming to help these students who are socioeconomically challenged or economically challenged to do better. So that's what that money is earmarked for. And trying to be creative and knowing that a rising tide lifts all boats, whether it's a 45-foot or a skiff. We think that, or at least the thinking was that using a strategic plan, certainly some of the money for eSpark would fall into that, as well as some other things. So I am probably one of the cheaper guys you know. Like, I watch the dollar. I assure you, I watch the dollar. But there are some times when you can spend, and sometimes you make an investment. So trust that. You don't have to trust. Feel free to ask me or ask, you know.
No, and you've been very helpful with that too. And you know, I even understand. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but and I'm kind of kicking myself here because I really want eSpark. I'm not saying don't do it, but not all of that focus grant is from the grant.
No,
not all the money for it. There is some money from our budget that is being used for it.
Right, absolutely.
And like I said, I'm not really focusing on the eSpark. Maybe it's because I have a bias for it. But it's things like this, you know, the strategic plan. It's things in general. And I'm not saying they don't need to be done, but just remember that, and I know you weren't here, Dr. Elson, and I know you've researched it all, but just remember that, and this is as a board and as an administration, that just, it seems like we're spending a lot of money. And this is a small district. Times in the area just aren't that great outside of the village, and even in the village. So just, and would a strategic plan help? Probably. I don't know. You guys are more versed in it than I am. Do we need it? Do we have to have it? Is it worth the money that we're talking to spend in it, or is some of that money worth buying new computers for our teachers? So there's what you have.
Thank you. Any other comments? Bernadette.
Yeah, on that same issue, I was just wondering, have the teachers been told that the long-term plan is for them to bring their own laptops? I'd be interested to know.
I brought that up, and it was just when I was talking with, there was an issue that we were dealing with, and the comment was made that eventually the teachers will have to bring their own. It was not from administration, it was just from somebody.
Would any of the administrators like to speak to that?
I think, yes. Tonight was the first time that I heard that, and I've never heard of anything, even in public education in New York State, in the poorest districts, where you ask teachers to bring in their own things. So I can say, I would never recommend that to them.
Except we don't have money in the budget to replace computers.
So
can we have a plan made before budget time so that we can have an understanding of what needs are? I understand infrastructure is important, and I agree with that. However, what are the other needs?
Right.
And how old are all of the computers, and where's that assessment? So if we could look at understanding all of the teachers, all of their computer needs, and how much they're old, we could start to make a replacement cycle.
Absolutely.
Because obviously we can't replace all the computers or all the technology in one shot, but it would at least be able to get us on, even if it was 5 a year.
I understand.
So if we can get that plan, I think that would be helpful for everybody.
Right.
To have a better understanding.
Right. Phase one of that was to get inventory. And if you recall, I certainly sent information with regard to step one was to start identifying who has what.
Yeah.
There has not been a system in place. And one of the things that keep recurring is systems and processes. And so as you start uncovering things, you notice that there was no plan for replacement or even effectively distributed. Some things are not what you call tagged, which means it's tagged by the RIC or tagged by HCF. So those are systems and processes being put in place. The technician, the computer tech services person, when was hired, was given the elementary and secondary technology subcommittee recommendations, which were formed late last spring, and you told to use that as a guide to begin the work.
And that was from the teachers?
Well, it wasn't just, it was
and
whatever
parents
people
and-
were on the committees at the elementary and
those,
secondary level.
But that was to raise those concerns up, correct?
Oh, that and any other thing as it relates to technology.
right.
And that, that was distributed to you at some point, maybe late last spring, maybe in the summer. But
Possible maybe the next board meeting to have one of the tech people come and just say, this is where we are, this is where things are going. And then we
that would be great. And that happened today with the elementary, at the elementary faculty meeting in terms of first 38 days, and that happened at the secondary maybe a week or so earlier. So, and one of the things on the agenda that I indicated, I think at the July meeting, is that she would be giving a report to the board after 3 months, because I knew that there was so much work to begin, but we can move that back, and we'll be talking about what it is exactly you want in the presentation, because that'll be helpful to her, because she might come
And
to
to be able to have the community teachers and all of us here at one time, I think would be a.
Are the tech committees still meeting?
The email just went out for inclusion for people. So I know the first meeting has not occurred yet, but I did make it clear that we needed to have that by the end of the month. So that was clearly articulated.
Sorry, real quick. And before I say this to you, Dr. A, this isn't what I'm going to say a knock at you, because this issue's been going on before you got here. You have taken steps to alleviate some of it, but some of it still exists. More and more, I just try to sit back and watch. Like I said, I pick up things. This school is great. My concern as a parent my one problem I've had as a parent, and then I'm working on ways to address those in other channels too. As a whole, this district has a major communication problem from all channels, from board to administration, from administration to teachers, from board to teachers, from all your channels. There needs to be a better focus on the channels of communication, because I'm sitting right here, I can pick up the angst in the room. It's quite prevalent. There seems to be a lot of misinformation, you know. One person says one thing, well, the other person says they didn't hear that thing. It's time to look at some severe changes in how things are communicated, not just to public. I mean, I keep aware, I'm able to pick up on things, but it seems like as a school district, between all of your channels of, you know, employees and board members, it seems that there's good communication in each of those pockets. It seems like the elementary staff is quite aware of what the elementary staff wants. Secondary school, administration, board, it seems like there's no channel for appropriate communication between that. It seems like there's a lot of like assumptions that, well, they know it, well, they don't know it. I don't know who needs to address that, but there's definitely a communication breakdown in the school district. And I think it needs to be, a lot of these problems we talk about wouldn't even be problems if there was proper communication. And ultimately, as a district, we're setting an example for the students we teach. And if they're seeing there's a lack of communication, we're teaching them bad communication, other than that they know what bad communication looks like.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Paul's question about having a tech person here. And I don't even know if the tech person is the person who would answer this, but I've heard from various people, and I believe other teachers have heard too, that our tech budget is actually zero right now, that all the money for this year has already been spent. And what I've heard it was spent on is replacing, I think it might have been around 80 Chromebooks that were broken last year at the middle school level, but I'm not sure if it was 80, it could have been 40. But the majority of what I heard was to purchase new Chromebooks and iPads for the eSpark program. So what I've heard is that we are starting the year at a zero tech budget. Somebody brought up their projector bulb. I requested last October a new projector bulb because I have the light that says you only have a certain number of hours left, and I use that in every single class. I could not teach without it. And I was told that it would be not just need to be replaced, but that the whole unit would need to be cleaned, and they would do it over winter break or spring break. That didn't happen. It didn't happen over summer break. I submitted another request in September. I submitted another request 10 days later. I haven't even heard, I haven't heard anything. Like, I think somebody said they heard back that we didn't have money for a projector bulb, but I didn't hear anything. But I am concerned if we don't have any budget money in September, because if my computer or projector were to die, I just don't know what I would do. And I'm sorry, I've spoken a few times. I don't want to.
No, that's all right.
But
we'll look into the budget numbers, okay, certainly. And are you aware about the light? Were you aware of that, Bill? Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
And Bill did try to advocate, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I'm not the only one that he's tried to advocate for. But when we fill things out on the help desk, sometimes we just don't ever hear a response. And again, I'm not criticizing the people in that department. From what I understand, they are doing the best they can with the staffing they have, and I think that the number of requests is well beyond what they could ever hope to address. So I want to be clear that I'm not criticizing the people.
Okay, thank you.
To come back just as a stopgap measure, I wonder if I know that COVID has a much faster replacement cycle, and I think on a previous occasion they have donated some of the equipment that was like 3 years old to the school to use, and that would still load a lot faster than a computer had said. So I wonder if they'd be willing to do that again, and it would be budget neutral, and just as that wouldn't replace a deep look into what we're doing here, but it might help. For the next couple of months, because these guys, you have to be in the classroom, like, tomorrow, and I really sympathize with you. The other thing is the Emerald Foundation. I mean, they can't take over our technology, but I mean, they've been helping us
they have
a lot.
salvage,
And
and their
we could
salvage
say, okay,
looks like our working
three new laptops, would help us hugely
Yes.
while we work on this new plan. I could imagine that they would, help out too. On a larger scale, I think as we are thinking about bringing in strategic planners, and as we maybe think about next year's district goals, I wonder if employee satisfaction could be a goal and part of the strategic planning process. Because again and again, the individual issue varies, but morale is low. We have to see that, and there are reasons for it. We just lost a fabulous chorus teacher last summer, and that was not just because she was commuting too far. We really have to look into that, and if we want to be a better school for everybody, that should be one dimension for the strategic planning process, for sure. That should be a strategic goal, and as a district goal, I would think possibly for next year's school.
Thank you. Any other comments? Could you state your name?
Yeah, I spoke plenty.
Yeah.
I'm Maura Tumulty. I'm the parent of a kindergartner and a 6th grader. I apologize for being late. I went to the wrong library. I wanted to just express some concern to the board about the K-5 tech rollout. I've been involved in the informational meetings about it. I've really appreciated Mr. Ellis and Dr. Austin having those meetings. But my concerns are not being assuaged, and if anything, they're deepening. I know this year it's not our district's money that's being spent, but if a pilot exits the pilot stage, at some point it will be our district's money that's being spent, and at present it's being formulated as for this year only. It's supplemental and not replacing key instructional blocks. That suggests at some point in the future it could be, because I have grave doubts about the goodness of these sorts of systems. I'm concerned about what at least looks to me like a really unclear plan for assessing how the pilot goes. You all sit in different places, you see different things, so it may be that there's all kinds of stuff going on that members of the general public are not aware of, but there just does not seem to be a clear, sort of empirically valid plan for assessing this pilot, and once it's up and running, there will be pressure from eSpark to continue it. Once a train is moving, it's hard to slow it down. And so, because there still hasn't been stated what the assessment criteria will be, I'm nervous for my kindergartner at the beginning of his K-5 experience, and I'm breathing a sigh of relief that my 6th grader is on the other side of it. And I'm just hoping that conversation around this continues. I'd be really excited if the board would have more, maybe public meetings to talk more about this and how the pilot's going to be assessed and how information is going to be shared with the community. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comment.
While we're airing out our concerns, something Ferdinand suggested, which is actually a great idea, asking Colgate for help with that. But in regards to that, we ask, and this isn't anything that has to do with this so much, but looking forward as a board, I ask you, we ask a lot from Colgate, from money to support, which is great. They're a community partner. My fear is that in time, we're going to become so in debt to their money, to their services, that they're going to have an influence over us as a district, where we might be hesitant to be like, if they want something, we might be hesitant as to like, I don't know. So I caution you as a board to seemingly consistently go to the university for financial help, not so much for not for consulting, because that's great. They're a community partner. Like you said, that's great when you can connect with your community partner, especially if it saves you money. But it seems like progressively over the years, and correct me if it's wrong, a couple of years ago it almost bit us when we got $400,000 from that. Didn't it like knock us down into like a different tax thing, and it kind of screwed us if I remember right.
That was during the GEA. I don't remember anybody.
And I'm not well
speaking
versed
in a
on it,
negative
but
way like that.
my progressive fear, and I use fear in a large sense here, but just be careful when we go searching for things from the university alone and their little trail organizations, that in time, are we a public school or are we a private school through a channel? It's just a concern that's not just shared by me alone. So just please keep that in the back of your mind when things are going on, just to don't always go for them initially for help or ultimately. And the other thing too is we have to realize that we're a small school district. Yes, we like to compare ourselves in grades to Clinton, to Fayetteville, Manulus. But we have to understand too, we have to know what we are in terms of the economics of the district. I've mentioned to you before, a lot of people lose grasp. You drive around, beautiful houses in the village. A lot of people, especially new to the village, don't realize that in our BOCES district, correct me if I'm wrong, we have the highest percentage of free and reduced lunches, which is a reflection of there's areas in this school district, as small as it is, have really been hit by bad financial times. So especially when we hear all these proposals for money going out, keep in mind that there's families in this school district that are shocked by it. And I've spoken enough on that. So just the things I've told you tonight, please keep in the back of your mind as you go forward, because what I've gotten from the board the last couple of years is yes, 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 no question to things. And it's not that there's not good suggestions being made. You've made some great suggestions, some things that could possibly bring in money if searched right. Just remember that a few years ago, we were in dire straits, and keep that all in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments?
Can I make one more?
Yes, you could.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Alicia Simmons again. So in thinking about your comments, right, and in thinking about going back to the eSpark, and we spent the money on the iPads and so on and so forth, one of the things I learned from the first parent university is that one of the intentions would be maybe start letting the kids bring the iPads home and use an eSpark at home time, which can be a great supplement, right, and doesn't detract from classroom time, which is a concern for some folks. One of the questions that I've had that I haven't heard addressed yet, and kind of goes back to systems, processes, pre-planning, thinking about our district, right? Current data indicates that people who live in rural areas, about 15% of those folks only have internet on their phones at home. Like, don't have a broadband connection, don't have Wi-Fi. And if you don't have those two things, then you have a $600 paperweight at home. The eSpark isn't going to work, right? And I have yet to hear, in thinking about data and information, does anybody know, thinking about our low-income kids, what percentage of them have Wi-Fi? What percentage of them are actually going to be able to use this tablet at home versus, I mean, so my kids, I teach at Colgate, right? Like, I have Wi-Fi, I have broadband, it's fine. But in thinking about, we're trying to really work with our at-risk students, our socioeconomically at the lowest end of the tier, right? If they don't have Wi-Fi, like, this isn't gonna work. And so I haven't heard any information about that. And so when I talk about my data concerns, you know, it ties right in.
Can I piggyback on that?
Yes.
Because I have raised that exact concern. Because my concern, again, I'm killing myself here, because I want eSpark. I really do. But there are concerns about it, and I understand, I really appreciate your input too, because you've been very helpful for me to understand the other side of it. The concern as far as eSpark, I'm not sure if the board, what's left of you here tonight, quite has been fouled of it.
4 out of 5.
It's using focus money, and we all know what the focus money was
Yes.
for. You just touched on it, and I've asked this question too, and I've been told a couple of reasons why we can't do a couple of things. We're creating the possibility of making what brought us to the focus district, which was actually, we shouldn't have been, but we were. We're creating a possible culture for, instead of closing that gap, dividing that gap. We're making it greater just by the exact reason you talked about. There's going to be kids that have access to it. And yes, there's public libraries, there's a school district. I don't have to let anyone know that unfortunately there are parents and guardians out there which aren't even going to do that. They won't even give them a meal, let alone bring them to a library. So just please.
The last time I talked to a tech director hasn't been recent. It's been like a year and a half ago, and it was a surprisingly high number of folks in our district who are online. Kevin, do you have any?
I thought you actually had.
Yeah, and that was,
you had
we
data.
did
We
have
were-
data a couple of years ago,
we
and
will
we were
certainly-
in the 90
we were in
percentile.
the- yeah,
But
we
the
were
question
But-
we will
Was
find
that a
that.
survey?
And the
or
question
was
is
it-
what kind of service?
That's-
Yeah.
Because you can ask the question, do you have internet at home? And now my
And it
phone,
might not
yes,
be
but that
high-speed
doesn't
internet.
let me do anything with
I
home.
just believe
So-
we have that data, and I think we'll.
And also, I think
we'll
it's been
find
brought
it.
up that, we can't even create as a district hotspots for families because that's against state law, from my understanding, if I remember right. So it seems like that's definitely, maybe, teachers, I don't know if you're, I mean, like, it seems like, yes, one-to-one technology is great, but if it's gonna be brought home, which is the issue here,
We need that.
we need that channel.
but
And the other
I know
thing
we
that,
have it.
I know you understand,
Yeah, I know we have it.
but, and it's great,
And
we
that,
got one-to-one
that
technology.
question has been asked about other initiatives, flipped classroom, things like that, when we went into it. And our number is surprisingly high, and we do need to see if we
And
still
as-
have that and what kind it is, as you suggest.
Well, the other question is just from a statistical point of view, my wife will appreciate the fact that I'm going to stats, but,
She'll explain it to you.
yeah, she'll have to explain it to me. Let's say it's only 5% that don't have internet, but that 5% could be
Yes.
85% of the target group for focus, so therefore,
Yes.
saying that we've got 95%.
No, I know, we need to.
Won't mean anything.
I think we have it.
And also what scares me here is, I see what you said about, and it's not verified. Okay, so there's kind of a unknown teachers, if you can get your own or if you can get your own computers, that'd be great. There are a lot of smaller school districts, which it's not a policy, that's just what happens. The teachers, and it's unfortunate, it is. The teachers, in order to teach like they want to teach, just like I'm preaching to the choir here, you guys spend a lot of your own pocket money on things. A lot of the smaller school districts and a lot of the lower economic areas, the teachers just, it's a given. They know they're not going to get it, so it's happened. So do we want to be those districts? Or do we want to be the district that's just going to pretend like that's not happening, but we're going to give our kids, which is great, and there's grant money, I understand that. The kids have access to great technology devices, but what I'm picking up tonight is it seems like that our teachers are way behind the curve as far as technology. They probably do more on their kids' iPads than they can do on the computers in the classroom, if that's the way I'm picking up tonight.
Well, I think what is
But
the.
it's not all of them.
Right.
Some teachers do have some updated and some
And is
haven't.
that fair to the other teachers?
Well, no, it's just kind of, there was a cycling, there was a cycle.
Isn't this all sort of part of what a strategic plan is about?
Yeah, so there are some things that you would expect to have in place to
Strategic plan,
begin
not in the
with, right?
strategic plan though, is it?
Well, there are some things that you would expect to have in place just because you're an organization.
Right.
Some of those things are just not in place here. So
Right.
there would, in a former role, there was a process where we replaced everyone on a cycle. That doesn't exist here. Well, in terms of teachers'
Right.
hardware, we didn't do laptops, we made sure Ms. Jacobson had a computer in her classroom every 3 to 5 years. That's when we would cycle them out. That's not part of a plan here. That just doesn't exist here. So I know that some teachers got new computers last year. That's good, but it wasn't necessarily part of a plan. Some teachers went and said, I'm on my last leg, and one was issued. So one of the things that we have to do is that. So one of the things that we ask the strategic planners to take into consideration are the subcommittee recommendations from elementary and secondary, because that will be part of when we have this core team of people across the community representing different constituencies, where people get to kind of hear the information, see the reports, and see, well, where does this fit in? But for the practitioner, you know that you should already be in a cycle. So that's where we are. There was not one that existed already. It was much more.
Can we see a copy of the last technology plan that was in place? I mean, could we get that forwarded to us so we can maybe start?
Great for that happened at the building level, or the one that gets submitted, because.
How about both?
Yeah, one exists.
Okay.
Okay, I can give you the one that does exist.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question in terms of that? So there's a proposal for a strategic plan. Ultimately, it seems like technology for teachers is one of the things that would be a highlight on there. Do you need a strategic plan to tell you that? Not just to tell you that, but it seems like there's some pretty smart people here. Why pay somebody to tell us how to fix what we need when you can use that money you're paying them to help us figure out a plan? Everyone here is pretty reasonable, and it seems like there's some very smart people in here. It seems like a lot of this stuff, I'm not really sure what the district really needs a strategic plan for in some ways, because it seems like you're paying for somebody to fix something that really seems quite simple as a whole. I know it's very complex, but it just seems like we're shooting for the stars here, but we're not addressing the smaller things. Again, I know it's.
I mean, I think in many ways, my perspective of it is that, yes, we're shooting for the stars, but part of shooting for the stars is really needing to assess where we are, where we want to be, and how are we going to get there. And yes, there's a lot of really smart people in this room and in this building, and all of those things need to be heard. But I also, and this is personal opinion, I'm not speaking for anybody else, I also strongly feel that sometimes having that outside observer looking in can pick things apart in a way that the people in it aren't always able to do. And so for me, it's that having that outside observer who's talking to all of these people that are invested and hearing all of this. But again, with this organization that we've talked about tonight that has done this and been successful, to then take that knowledge and experience and that sort of outside view to be able to help bring that team back to a team with a common vision and a common goal and a common all of that. I mean, that's the way I look at that process.
My response to that would be that, and again, I'm not really sure exactly how these strategic plans work, which I understand as proposals, but it seems like the board and the staff, it seems like we're not even aware of what the problems are. And
That's one thing the strategic plan would do.
I think that's part of the
And
problem.
actually, yeah.
But why do we need to pay somebody to tell us what our problems are when they're so evident sometimes?
They're not always evident. I mean, they're not always evident when you're in the thick of things. That's why, I mean, my vote in opposition had to do with the process. It's not against the strategic plan. It's not obvious when you're in the middle of it.
Sometimes when you do it the other way, you end up putting out fires and you don't end up doing something that you talked about earlier, having all parts of the machine. The other thing that's really exciting about a strategic plan to me is that answers are generated from within. It's not the state coming in and saying you have to do this. It's us saying these are our priorities, these are the things that we see as problems, and these are the things that we want to do to fix it. It's using the intelligence that's in the organization.
And I'm not saying don't do it, I'm sorry. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying that I'm having trouble as just, a community member fully understanding. You understand what I'm asking.
Right, I do. And I'm going to invite you to make an appointment.
And I hear you, I understand. I appreciate you explaining it to me like that.
Ferdinand, you have a question?
Yeah, I promise to shut up, but just one last thing on technology. I think where rubber hits the road in the end as teachers and kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
I have it from a source that Mr. Raines and Latin book was actually better than Mr. Raines and a tablet. And Sue Lehman's math rocks, and I mean there are lots of teachers whom I respect so much. All I want to say is really what it comes down to, let's support these because you guys are our chief asset. Let's support our teachers and let's ask them how supported they feel.
Thank you.
Can I end with one quick thing?
Okay, and
it'll
I'm
be
gonna
quick.
have to
All I
cut
wanna
you off.
say
You've
is
had
that-
more than your 3 minutes.
I understand. I was just going to give you a thank you.
Okay.
for-
You're welcome. I'll take it. We'll take it.
I opened up a lot of criticism, but
No.
please
I-
understand that I sincerely appreciate all that you guys have done.
I do thank you for-
Administration, and as a board, it's all volunteer work. I really
I
appreciate that.
do thank you for
Please
your
don't take that the
comments.
wrong way.
And a couple of times you've said, keep it in the back of your mind, and I don't think that's where we'll keep comments. I think that we're gonna try and follow up on them. And I thank you for your comments, but I am gonna ask that tell you that your 3 minutes are up, Travis. Okay.
Terry, are my 3 minutes up?
You have 10 seconds, Holly.
Okay, I just want to say, and this is building on a couple of things that have been said, one relating to communication. I'm not saying whether I'm opposed or in support of the strategic plan. However, there are certainly ways that the board could be made aware of issues without going through the process, and this could have happened over the past several years. I want to say, and I'm sure you all understand this, that if this were, say, a year and a half or 2 years ago, you probably wouldn't be hearing anything from the teachers at a meeting like this. There's clearly been a culture shift, and people are willing to speak up. You're hearing a little bit now because of that, but there have been issues for years, and you haven't heard because we've been afraid to speak up at board meetings. And I guess I just want to say, if there was the attempt to reach out, we would be glad to have a contingent of us sit down with a contingent of you and share some of the issues. We don't necessarily need to wait years or go through a strategic plan, not that I'm saying we shouldn't. But I think we have to admit that there should have been opportunities for teachers to be able to present to the board what some of the issues were. And I think we're lucky it's happening now only because of the culture shift and a few of us who have been willing to speak up. I mean, for every one of us that's speaking up tonight, there are 20 people who don't even want to show their faces because it feels confrontational.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, I will ask for motions to adjourn to executive session so we can take the time to review the employment history of a particular individual. All in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.